So hi everyone. So today we will talk about the Venezuela case. Okay. So what happened in Venezuela? So first let's talk about the strategic location of Venezuela. So Venezuela lies in the Caribbean Sea, and the north of it we see Mexico, America, and the Canada. Okay. So the recent developments, the attack on Venezuela by US. Okay. So every nation is really condemning this war because it's against the US Charter, and US Charter itself talks about the sovereignty of every nation, that every nation is sovereign and you cannot attack on any nation without being without taking any discussion in UN, because Venezuela is not a terrorist country, and how can you do so? So though this is not a good thing and it is against the sovereignty of a nation, and the UNSC meeting will be taking place anytime soon against the action of Donald Trump. So if we talk about the why this war, okay, so because see US was already has oil reserves, and US being the importer of the oil from the Middle East nation, from Saudi Arabia. Okay, now US has noticed something like China's great involvement in Venezuela, and China and US both are opposite of each other. Okay, so US has observed that why China is entering into the Western Hemisphere and has so much of export monopoly. Okay, we can say the import monopoly, because Venezuela has been importing 70 to 80% of oil to China. And so US observed this because according to the Monroe Doctrine, US never really wants anyone interference, or we can say the influence in the Western Hemisphere. And this is what happened. Okay, so US, if US is saying it's the war between war about the drugs and terrorism, that's not the case. It's about the oil, and the US has now got it. As Donald Trump has said, they are going to run Venezuela uh, in the coming years. Okay, for a few days until there is some legitimate and judicious government transition take place. Now, US has got the world's largest oil reserves, and it's high best crude quality oil, which even Saudi Arabia don't have. So the parties. Now the good thing here is China already has $100 billion of investment in Venezuela. Now there are many views coming out where people are feeling like America is directly like targeting Russia and China. That is not the case in here. China has already $100 billion of investment in Venezuela, which US can take advantage of. And US Trump has already said this, that they are going to export oil to China. Okay, so the trading between China and US won't stop. Now here comes the geopolitical angle. See, China already control 90 or 80-90% around something of the rare earth elements, and 90% of refining, okay, which takes place in China. And China has adopted a protectionist, export protectionist policy, or we can say is moving towards the protectionism, okay, where China is controlling the export and not exporting the rare earth elements, because rare earth elements is a need of the hour, we can say. Okay, every country needs it because they are the, we can say, they are the heart of the more advanced technologies. Okay, rare earth elements we use in AI system, AI chips, semiconductor chips, EV vehicles, in everywhere. Everywhere we use it. Now if the China dominance in the South America, okay, it, it might happen that it not only would be limited to the Venezuela, but China might influence the other nation, which we call as a lithium triangle. Okay, it's the A, B, and C, which is Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile. Okay, these three nations basically constitute are and named as lithium triangle. They have the largest reserves of lithium. So this might happen that China bring them under his influence, and again China has a policy of that trap. Okay, China do big dollars of investment, and finally what we see, it's a debt trap. Okay, so because we have already seen it Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, everywhere. And now on the basis of this recent development, whole geopolitics, the whole world order, we will soon notice is changing. Okay, because Russia, on the another hand, is supplying oil and gas. Okay, now America has got world's best high crude oil reserve, and America is going to monopolize that trade. Okay, American MNC is going to monopolize that trade, and America's dependence on the Middle East, specifically the Saudi Arabia, is going to decline because now America won't consider them because America has got it what it has to need what needs to be there. Okay, now Russia and America, okay, they are both in a Cold War. I mean, because there's a theory of it. Cold War has neither any starting nor has any ending. Both nations is engulfed in a proxy wars. Okay, proxy wars. If we talk about, you can see it as an example of the Ukraine war. Russia is busy in a Ukraine war, because Ukraine, because Russia, okay, specifically Russia was supplying a huge gas and oil to Europe. Okay, European nations was importing oil and gas from Russia, and on the other hand, America already has the reserves before Venezuela. So America thought of it: why Russia? Why Russia? Let's go for a war, for a proxy war, and news came out that America is going to include a NATO going to include Ukraine in NATO, okay, and though which has not happened yet, and it won't happen in the near future. But they are in a war, and Russia didn't like this. That why some Western nation is going to have weapons army on towards the boundary of Russia. So Russia didn't like it, and they both engulfed in a war, and this is a strategic move by USA. Now, since US has got all this thing, this oil reserve, now US is going to monopolize it, and according to the development which we'll be seeing as like US will now supply the oil to the other nations, reducing dependence from the Saudi Arabia, and now US is going might might develop the oil reserve in Pakistan, as we have heard last year that US is going to develop oil reserves. Now, behind the development of oil reserve in Pakistan is not something money-minded motive of the US, but it is a very strategic move, because if US is developing oil reserves, then it means the US is going to deploy its army in there in Pakistan as well. And at the same time, USA will counter India, not in a more harsh way, but yes, it will control it in a very strategic way. On the other hand, Russia and China. So US presence might be there in Pakistan after the development of oil reserves, and we will be seeing it in coming days or years about this new development. So about the China involvement, yes, China is not happy with this new development, but there's something not much going to happen between both, because both needs each other. China need oil and US needs rare earth elements, so they will both come into a strategic agreement, and we'll be seeing new developments in a coming year. And stay tuned and welcome to the code.